So, the Isle of Madness reveal season is now upon us, and by the time that this video releases, we'll have at least seen a couple of new cards from Isle of Madness. It's some unique legendaries that were revealed during some tournaments that were played over the weekend, and I wanted to do a video that talked about both of them because they have similar abilities and they deserve to be mentioned alongside each other. So, first up, we've got Syl, the Duchess of Dementia. This is a 6-cost red unique legendary. It is a 7/6, and that is respectable stats for a 6-cost. And as a summon effect, summon, this lane becomes Dementia. Now, that's really cool because it's a lane replacement effect. We haven't seen something like this since Hidden Trail. And I am excited to see more of these effects. After all, the lanes are one of the things that makes legends legends. Now, you might be asking yourself, what is Dementia? I'm glad you asked. Dementia basically makes this lane say, at the start of each player's turn, if they have the creature with the highest power in that lane, you deal 3 damage to your opponent. So, right out of the gate, Duchess of Dementia with that 7 attack power is a strong candidate for you to have a creature with the highest power in that lane. And being that this is also a strength creature, you're likely to have a lot of other options that will ensure you have the highest power. After all, red has a lot of creatures that have 4, 5, 6 attack power, and even some with 7, right? If you're running a deck that wants to take advantage of the Duchess of Dementia, you might consider something like Lumbering Ogrim or other low health, high attack creatures. And this is great. This is one of those cards that is interesting because when you play it, even if your opponent answers it, because it has now changed the lane and that's going to stick around for a bit, you can basically turn any of your creatures into a way to threaten lethal. It also makes prophecy creatures very, very important because if your opponent breaks a rune and gives you a prophecy and then they can no longer answer that creature, this means you might be able to trigger Dementia. It also means that cards that have both prophecy and other effects that get them into play, like our new Ambusher friend, for example, also potentially powerful. After all, the Ambusher is a 4/1. 4 is a decent attack power, and against a lot of slower decks, they may not have something like that. They might have, 1s and 2s and 3s. So you could find ways to very sneakily add some creatures with high attack power to a lane, get that 3 damage, and start trying to close the game out. So this is a very interesting card. I like the effect. In terms of like competitive viability, I think it's going to be one of those things that we have to wait and see because it is a unique legendary, and it is at that weird cost, right? Like, a lot of your very aggressive decks don't run things that cost more than 5, but 6 is just enough that I would consider it. Even in something that you might not consider wanting to run it in. I think about, like, Halalu or Aggro Warrior. It might be worth throwing the Duchess in because once you've changed that lane, again, any of your high attack power creatures might be enough to threaten 3 damage. Even unactivated siege catapults. So if your opponent like wins the lane back from you, but they leave a siege catapult lying around thinking they're safe because, you've got no other ways to activate it, suddenly that 5 attack power siege catapult might represent 3 damage. So the fact that, again, this changes the lane is very interesting. I can only assume that if you play this in the shadow lane, you also remove the shadow lane because that lane would become Dementia. So this is the first time that we at least in like regular gameplay, so not story mode stuff, will have an ability of like denying cover in many ways. Even Hidden Trail, which was a lane replacement card, just made another shadow lane. So this will be the first time that we can experiment with, what happens if we take away the shadow lane. Now, there were 2 cards revealed, and they were both of similar themes, so we're going to move on to Thadon, or it could be Thadon. Again, I'm probably slaughtering it, but I'm going to say Thadon. This is the Duke of Mania. This is a 6-cost willpower unique legendary with a 6/7 stat line, so the exact opposite of our friend the Duchess. And this one, very similar effect. Summon, this lane becomes Mania. Now, you might be asking yourself, what is Mania? I'm glad you asked. Mania is another lane replacement effect, except this one is at the start of each player's turn. If they have the creature with the highest health in that lane, they draw a card. Now, it's not going to help you stabilize to offset the Dementia, right? It's not like, hey, I gained 3 health. But drawing a card is very powerful, very important. And what I like about this card specifically is that, it is a willpower card and it is a unique legendary, so you have to find it. But this might be the first time ever that Control Spell Sword gets something that represents like a decent draw tool. I mean, we got added Indoral Mastermind recently and things like that, but Control Spell Sword has in the past always kind of struggled with card draw. But if you want to play what I have jokingly called for a long time now, guard.deck, which is, Spell Sword with their spot removal and just a lot of high health guards, this might be the right card for you, because if you drop those high health guards in the lane and they happen to stick around, you're going to be drawing cards to replace them. So you can continue to just put big body after big body after big body in a Mania lane. Now, your opponent might just abandon that lane and force you over, but the damage might already be done, right? Because if you even just have something like a Dark Guardian there with a 2/5 health and they're not contesting that, you might just be drawing an extra card every turn. And that's a really powerful effect. So I like both of these cards. I also like that it's a summon effect so that you can start thinking about really crazy shenanigans like a Night to Remember, for example. So if you play one of these and then you play a Night to Remember and they pop to the other lane, you can turn both lanes into Mania or Dementia. Because it's a summon effect, you can also use one to overwrite the other. So if your opponent plays the Duchess and creates Dementia, you could theoretically drop the Duke and say, no, this is not Dementia, this is Mania, and then your opponent might say, no, this is Sparta, and then kick you into a well. But the point is, we get some really cool, really interesting effects, and I'm looking forward to playing with them and seeing if we can make them viable. The sniff test says that these are probably going to find homes in some decks. And I say the sniff test because card draw has just traditionally been very powerful. I think the biggest knock against the Duke of Mania is that he does nothing to help you stabilize. So he has no drain, he has no guard, nothing like that. And his ability doesn't gain health. So the card draw is nice and has the potential to be insane in some control mirrors and things like that. But that would be my biggest knock against him. Syl, on the other hand, I think will absolutely find home at a minimum in mid-range decks. Like mid-range Dagoth, for example, loves Syl. You're already playing a bunch of high attack creatures because you wanted to use the Dagoth effects, and you want, things with 5 attack power or more. She fits that bill, and she creates a long-term source of consistent pressure. So I absolutely think that she'll end up seeing play somewhere. So yeah, I like the cards. I love the theme. I want to know what you guys think, because it is reveal season, and as such, I'm excited to finally be talking about new cards and new content, and I want to know what you're brainstorming, what you want to put these in. Do you think they're good? Do you think they're not good? It's so refreshing to have those conversations again. And yes, when this comes out, I will be traveling. I will be outside the country, but I will be checking on my phone. So even if I can't reply right away, I am reading the comments, and I want to know what you guys think. So, leave some comments. And I love you guys. Thanks for watching. And until next time, may you walk on warm sands.